Hello, YouTube viewers. Um, Thought I'd make a video. Haven't in a while. Um, what subject? Thought I'd kind of delve into uh, the right to die euthanasia, peaceful exit to access, and voluntary sterilization procedures for women. Might seem and unrelated a bit, but they are in relation to certain societal norms and values um, based on pro-natalism, pro-reproduction, positive. Um, I just find it very grotesque and absurd, primitive that there's not this basic right to die, and even if there is in certain countries, like the Netherlands and Belgium, you have to go through all this paperwork and see psychiatrists and bureaucratic process and psychological evaluations to see if you're of a true, sound, rational, able to make decisions properly. Wouldn't be surprised if you have to go through brain scanners and fMRIs in some cases. Or you have to go through these regimens of antidepressants, and I'm not totally opposed to this, and it would certainly be preferable to have these have a universal right to die, with the caveat of having some of these waiting periods and therapy sessions. Probably would be best to have them for free and not to charge out the wazoo, but of course our for-profit medical system in America, I wouldn't do that. This is the issue of other societal, economic, political issues contributing to the state of distress or depression. It doesn't purely have to do with mechanistic biochemistry. Disruptions all on their own. There's no as if there's no environment and social system and just uh, experiences externally contributing to any psychological uh, distresses and disturbances. Particularly talking about anxiety, depression here. Um, but that's a different subject. So I was saying basically, it would be preferable to have a system where you had to go through some evaluations and you had to uh, test and to see if you're mentally and intellectually grounded or whatever you want to call it. Just seems so. Excuse me. So hypocritical. All these barriers and all these constraints and all these ways that can be turned down. But it comes to the process of childbirthing, uh, procreation, and in our world, in our general conception, it's just this free for all. I mean, it literally, I mean, everyone just has the so-called inalienable, unquestionable right to breed, and they can be suffering severe abnormalities and diseases. Uh, Something as terrible as hunting disease. Yeah, let's procreate. Yeah, no problem. Or just pick your example of extremely poor 16-year-olds in the ghettos with no financial stability or job to provide, or just living in the most abject squalor and slums and dumps. Yeah, pop out baby here, pop out baby here, pop out baby here. I'm not even going into the ethics of it at this point. I'm just talking about the contradiction, the, the imbalance of how creating a new sentient human being, feeling, uh, feeling conscious, living human being with all these wants and needs and desires, and into places where there's mass starvation and there's going to be just guaranteed, practically, just the most high levels of suffering that this kid is going to have to go through. Uh, it's totally okay, but if you want to exit the scene, that is, terminate your consciousness permanently and go back to non-existing, you need extensive psychiatric evaluation and scrutiny and all this, which is not applied to becoming a parent. You don't even require 1 month of how to be a non-abusive, proactive, supportive parent classes. Obviously, with the rates of child abuse and neglect, that might be something that seems reasonable to promote as a policy. But no. Still try to restrict abortions for women who may be living in a situation of abuse from a spouse. Many countries still allow marital rape, where they pretty much know that child will be subjected to the same abuse and have horrific consequences, but they can't abort. And it should be forced to non-voluntarily bring the child into this terrible, traumatizing circumstance. And that's seen as the good thing. Right? As an anti-natalist, anti-suffering kind of person, I just look at these pro-life arguments and these proponents. And I think forcing a new being here is the good thing, is the moral thing, is the correct position. It's just so paradoxical. I mean, I just cannot see. I just do not get it. I'm sorry. Yeah. And then I was going to talk about maybe how we sort of, I mean, we're talking about America specifically, but you go to other countries that are even more religious and theocratic, like Poland and El Salvador, and it's even worse. But sticking with America, United States specifically, and I like both continents. I technically count America, but if I say America, I mean the U.S. qualifier. It's basically near impossible for women to get voluntarily sterilized. Tubal ligation, and there's another procedure that I'm not sure how to pronounce, and hysterectomies, full removal of uterus. Um, I mean, these doctors and these OBGYNs and just will not do it unless you, even into your 30s, if you do not have like at least 2 or 3 kids, um, and if you don't get approval from your husband, or there's just all these notions, I guess, about how you'll regret not having biological kids, because obviously not applicable to people who are vehemently child-free by choice, or anti-natal, or overpopulation concerned, or peak oil concerned, or any of these other subjects. And you could make the argument that the amount of people that actually regret children, they have children and regret it, is even more harmful and negative, and increasing suffering, because you have the children and now you're just a burden to them, for chained to them for how many years, 16, 18, and then if they end up disabled and have severe learning difficulties or low functioning autism, um, and just the list goes on and on and on of all the troubles and psychologically deteriorating aspects of parenthood. Of course, there's all the bodily health and destruction of the body with pregnancy and birth, and the pain of the labor, and so many different risks of severe harm. That's not talked about. It's just, you'll regret not having them. I mean, they'll even refuse to perform these hysterectomies on women with um, severe health problems, or endometriosis, and or polycystic ovaries, or their pregnancies won't even be viable. It'll be the eggs grow on the outside of the uterus. It's the ectopic pregnancies, and even then they'll say, "No, I'm not going to do it." Yeah, you can still maybe conceivably have kids with IVF. Get it. It seems to me to violate sort of Hippocratic oath. Personally, this the whole do not cause harm is letting a woman suffer the anxiety of pregnancy or the pains of endometriosis and so on. That's definitely causing harm in my book. It's just like now this caution and looking at the side effects of what will happen in the future that, that goes on when discussing uh, the results of what would happen if a woman has her tubes tied is not applied to birth. All the regretful parent blogs and parents rate their kids. I mean, then you into this whole, then you go a bit broader into the overpopulation, the overshoot carrying capacity issues, and how many people can this planet support indefinitely and sustainably and equitably, and we're far above that, really. Consuming and depleting the non-renewable resources of Earth and the biosphere at beyond regenerative capacity. Uh, just tearing through everything, the topsoil, the freshwater ground, the fresh groundwater aquifers, of course, the fossil fuels. But this is talked about is just grow, grow, grow. Um, what is the indefinite carrying capacity and supportable load of humans that could live in America in some post uh, oil and climate changed world? It's definitely not 350 million or 400 million, however high the politicians expect it to go until it's just just insane. You have Elon Musk, the supposed genius, saying there's not enough people, and that's where the crisis is. I mean, what? Has this guy read any of the reports, scientific papers on biodiversity loss in the last 50 years? Has he read The Limits to Growth? Has he read anything by Paul Ehrlich and different conservation biologists? Yeah, but I guess from a billionaire global capitalist perspective, the more saturated the society is with workers, the more numbers, the more exploitative and lowering of wages you can get, the more you add to the sea of competition. And this all exists in some imaginary vacuum of, well, this is as ignoring the finiteness of our resources, ignoring the effects of climate change and the Arctic sea ice disappearing probably this decade, and just total annihilation of the natural world just in at our current population, and extrapolating out how much it would do, how much worse it would be if we got 2 billion more. I mean, it's just totally uninformed and illiterate. Suggesting that everything's fine, just keep uh, popping out babies and forget about any and all consequences. But anyway, I guess it's all for video tonight.